Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this episode of the leadership series put on by Lakeshore Human Capital. For those who don't know me, my name is Bandip Grewal. I'm the founder and CEO of Lakeshore Human Capital. We are a retained executive search firm. We're based here in Toronto, and we recruit at the senior executive level for our clients across Canada and the US. Our guest today is Olga Giovanniello. Olga has over 30 years of human resources experience leading and implementing strategies in large, complex organizations. She is currently the Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer for Sienna Senior Living, a leading retirement residences and long-term care provider for seniors in Ontario and British Columbia. Prior to Sienna Senior Living, Olga was at Canadian Tire Corporation, where she was most recently Senior Vice President, Human Resources and Organizational Effectiveness, and led the company's HR agenda. Olga has also spent 10 years at Sears Canada in various HR and business roles, including Vice President, Financial Services. Her HR career began at TD Bank, where she spent 10 years in management positions and senior HR roles. Olga has a Bachelor of Arts degree and a Master of Education degree from the University of Toronto. She holds a Chartered Director accreditation from McMaster University and is the former chair of the Trillium Health Partners Foundation Board. Good afternoon, Olga, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Mandy. Good to be here. Thank you.
Pleasure. So, Olga, you've had a very long and terrific career in human resources. Why? When and why did you decide on HR as your career choice?
Well, I think it's one of those things that many of us in human resources, I think, fell into. It wasn't necessarily a defined or prescribed route to get to human resources. There were no, or at that time, it wasn't really a popular, get your human resource management certificate after university, et cetera. I started at TD Bank in branch administration roles, and was approached after several years in those roles to take on a learning and development role at TD Bank at the time. And it was an opportunity for change. I would say that's sort of one thing that's sort of been consistent with my career. If anything came my way, I grabbed it, and why not give it a whirl. Yeah. However, I always did have an interest in human resources as it related to, I really understood that there was an opportunity to just get the most out of people that are working for you and with you, to see how it could really impact an organization's success. And I really believe that even then. I just felt there were things that you could do within a work environment that could really mobilize a workforce to do its best work and offer its best of itself. And that's really was the attraction to human resources. So when I got the chance for this learning and development role, it wasn't sort of a pure, as you would say, sort of human resource manager or human resource advisor role, but it was in human resources, and it was a step in the door, and so I grabbed it.
Right. Excellent. So I've heard, and this is before my time, but not too much before my time, before I entered the workforce, that human resources is known as personnel. I think that was a title in some organizations.
Yep, that's right.
And obviously it's come a long way. How would you say human resources has evolved from the time you started in the field to what it is today?
I was lucky working for big organizations that really did look at HR in a much broader sense than just personnel. And there's always an element of personnel, if you will, in any HR function. And I think it's, those are the basics that must be taken care of. But, early on, that was, if you thought about HR, that was 60-40% of the focus was around personnel, just addressing employee issues, being the conduit between an employee and any issue and management, really. Just trying to deal with the day-to-day requirements of your workforce. And that was, as I said, maybe 60%, maybe 70% of the focus. Over time, it's changed. That element, as I say, still has to be there, and it is offered and facilitated perhaps in different ways in different organizations. But where it has evolved really is HR really being part of the organization's DNA in terms of what the strategy needs to be for the company, what the organization culture needs to be for the company, what the workforce environment has to be for in a company in order for us to achieve whatever needs to happen from a business perspective. So I think it's really morphed, I would say, and evolved into being much more, and the words are so trite to say strategic, but there's much more emphasis in understanding how you can address the employee lever, if you will, in an organization to make things happen. And the focus for HR, in my view, over the years has really shifted to that spectrum of an offer.
Right. Excellent. If I'm big into reading, and I read a lot about leadership and management, and me personally, if you notice, I post quite a bit of articles on LinkedIn around leadership. Mm-hmm. What does leadership mean to you, Olga?
I think it's very simple. Leadership is doing the right thing, is believing the right thing, doing the right thing, and saying the right things. And obviously within the context of, sort of an organizational, environmental context, business context, whatever. But I do believe leadership is doing the right thing and focusing on that and mobilizing a workforce or a team or, the organization as a whole to achieve that right thing, whatever is defined at that moment in time. And I'm with you. There's lots of books, there's lots of philosophies around it, but at the core, it really is, how do you set the direction and do the right thing to achieve what needs to be achieved? And I think it's important for leaders to recognize the simplicity of that message, really, and sort of have that as the underlying foundation for everything that we do.
Right. How large of a staff, is it strictly HR you're responsible for at Sienna, or do you have other functional areas that roll up into you as well, Olga? And how large is that headcount?
Yeah, from an HR perspective, that includes, all of the disciplines within HR as we know it, business partner function, compensation, employee relations, labor relations. Sienna has a large unionized workforce, so we have a labor relations team, and the payroll function and shared services around HR data is part of the organization as well. Headcount of about 70.
70 people, okay.
Yeah.
And are there, any tricks or anything one or two things that you do, Olga, that you feel you do particularly well in order to get the most out of your staff and to keep them engaged and motivated?
Yeah, I think, if someone were to describe my leadership style, I would say that the best way to describe it is sort of participative. I like to be, I love the leadership role. I love the establishment of, what do we need to do and be as an organization, and how will that permeate the company as a whole, and through any programs and policies and practices that we may have. But I also feel like I'm a participative leader. I like to be in there with my team, not to be the meddlesome mama, but really to be, supportive as you can be. And it's almost, if you don't walk in their shoes a little bit and understand what they're going through, it's hard to be supportive, right? So I do believe in participating fully. You can probably tell from just my personality, what you see is what you get. There's no real hidden agenda. I feel everybody comes to work every day wanting to do a good job. Yeah. And so my role as a leader is to be as close with my team as possible, particularly your direct reports, so that you can help them do what they come to work for every day and what they want to in their core to be able to establish and achieve on a daily basis.
Wonderful. I recall, just shifting gears a little bit, I graduated from university about just a little over 20 years ago. And I remember, trying to find my new job, trying to figure out what I want to do, and, trying to get my foot in the door. And it was always, a bit of a, it was difficult, right? It was, I needed experience. I couldn't get the experience without getting a job, but a lot of the jobs that I applied for needed experience. So it's kind of a catch-22 there.
Right.
If you, can you share with us, Olga, what you look for when you're hiring new grads into, more at the corporate level, for corporate
Right.
roles?
Right.
And what advice would you give these new grads as they go out looking for jobs? Because if anything, it's gotten tougher during the pandemic.
It has gotten a lot harder. And I love new grads because they have a fresh perspective. They open our eyes to a lot of things that we don't think of or see.
Yeah.
But I would say what I look for initially, and I'll always ask questions in a roundabout way to figure this out, is I want to see an innate curiosity. If they have that in their DNA, then they will be a natural learner. They will want to develop. They approach things with sort of an open mind because of that innate curiosity that they have. So I really do crave that in someone new in the workforce, because they have to be a sponge. As much as they do know a lot, there's things that they're going to have to learn as well. And so that curiosity in a new grad is something that I try to see through the conversation, and it's hard to gauge, but you just can tell from a conversation really, what their various interests are and how they evolved those interests, or what motivated them, to go in a certain direction. I would say the advice I would give any new grad is any experience that you can get is a good experience. Yeah. And it's not an issue of just getting the job and putting the job down on your resume. It's what you do when you are in that job. Your resume, as you build it, and any experience, you should have some sort of an impact or something that you have done that was a good thing that you want to talk about. And that has to be part of their experience in any organization or any role they have. So take on a job, but don't just take on the job and put in the time. Take in the job and do something with it so that you can say, well, I was there, I did this. Yeah. And the impact of what my contributions were this. That's what an employer wants to see, I think.
Right. And how does this differ? And I'm assuming it does differ. How does this differ when you're recruiting for more experienced executives, right? So if you're recruiting for, in your business, a CFO, a general counsel, which I know you recently hired, a head of long-term care operations, I'm assuming the process longer, and are there other skill set experiences you're looking for in the more experienced hires?
Sure. The process is longer. Particularly you're hiring an executive role. You want that individual to add something to the dynamic of the executive team and add something to the company. So their experience has to sort of fit in like a puzzle piece almost. So it is a longer and more exhaustive process. There's no doubt about it. What I look for is a track record. As I said earlier, with, the advice for any new grad is to make sure you've made an impact and you can say that you've done something. It's no different with an executive. I don't want to necessarily know that you were at this company for 2 years, this company for 5 years, etc. That's part of the storyline, but the storyline has to be, what did you do when you were there? What are the accomplishments? Because in my view, if you have a track record of success, then there's no way that you're not going to continue to be successful or want to be successful and crave that success in your new organization and in your new role. So that's definitely what I look for. And here's sort of I'll give out a trade secret, but I always ask, what was the organization or the function that you led like when you got there, and how would you describe it now that you're 3 years later, 4 years later? And I want to get a sense of, people talk about what they've done, but how they say what they've done also, to me, illuminates sort of the passion and the commitment they have to the change that they potentially had created in an organization. So I always ask that question, sort of give me a before and an after. And what happened during that time? How did you get there? And it's interesting to hear what they've done, but it's almost more interesting for me to hear how they explain it, because that really, really does illuminate into sort of their passion and their commitment to what they're trying to do.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, talking along those lines, just in terms of senior executive hires, how do you view or how do you treat a candidate, if they've been unemployed for a year or 2 years even? Do you ask different types of questions? How do you view that type of a candidate, applying for a senior role with Sienna or any other organization that you've worked for? And do you have any concerns of gaps within a person's resume?
Typically, I don't. I say, it is just such a common factor right now in work life and at the executive level. Like, it is very rare that you don't see an executive that has left an organization, is in the middle, in between roles, looking for their next opportunity. And it's unfair, in my view, to sort of put a judgment around what happened and why that happened. If somebody has put their foot forward in terms of being a candidate for a role, and they've got the experience and they've got the background for it and the interest and inclination for it, I think they deserve every chance, a good chance at competing for the role.
Right.
So I think it's just so common today to see gaps, and for various reasons that people step away, personal reasons, business reasons, etc., that I think you just have to have an open mind. And I think we're much more tolerant of it, even in the last, I would say, 5 years than we were even 5 years ago.
Yeah. I would agree. I'm seeing that.
Right? Yeah.
So, we're still in the midst of the pandemic. We thought it
sure
was
are.
when we
sure are.
got into this last year, we thought it was going to last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and then life would return, back to normal.
Yeah.
The past year has been difficult for a lot of industries, a lot of businesses. They've been, adversely affected. Obviously you're in the long-term care business, and which is
certainly felt it.
Really felt it, and it's been all over the papers and media. What would you say have been some of the major challenges and learnings for you, Olga?
Right. I don't think any of us have experienced a work year like we did last year, starting, March, whatever it was, 16th, 17th, every company shut down, or quote unquote shut down differently. We couldn't shut down. We were right in the eye of the storm, if you will. Right. But I frankly don't want to relive it. It was very, very challenging. I think the biggest challenge was the unknown. And I think that was true with everybody, and unknown was different for every sector, every industry. Unknown for us, though, was we were dealing with people's lives. And so, there's that added pressure around making sure that you're doing the right thing, because you felt it in your soul if you weren't doing the right thing. And we felt it acutely as an executive team and as a leadership team at Sienna. The learning we had and the challenge was it just didn't stop. It was relentless. It was not, an 8-hour day. It was not even a 12-hour day. It was sometimes a 20-hour day. And that would go on for 7 days. It was there was just like a rolling week that just didn't end, right? How many times were we on phones, as an executive team at 11:30 at night, all of us, right? But nobody did it begrudgingly, and nobody complained, which was a learning, if you will. Like, when there is a commitment to a cause and a commitment and a belief in what you're doing as the right thing, nobody really felt put upon. And as an executive team, sometimes we would say, and I know I said this many times, I go, what am I feeling sorry for myself for? I'm working from home. Yeah, I know, long days, but I'm not commuting, etc. We have our frontline healthcare workers that are going into homes that are just full of COVID. And they're doing so, risking their health and safety, that of their families as well, at a point in time where we thought we knew what was going on and how to address it. But we were wrong in some cases. We were right in other cases. Everybody was learning and it was evolving. But they were going in every day because they had a calling in their mind. Those residents were more important to them. Taking care of those residents were more important to them. So, there were challenges. We all faced them. We don't want to live through them again. The learning, though, if you step back and think about it, whether it was the executive team or that frontline healthcare worker, there was a commitment and a belief in what they were doing. And if that's not a learning in terms of what you have to replicate in an organization or with a workforce,
Yeah.
so that you can be successful and really make an impact, I don't know what is. But that was probably the biggest learning I had from a work perspective, for sure.
Yeah, excellent.
The value of a team as well. The team picked one another up. Yeah. Like where, somebody was falling down or, couldn't work another hour because there was just nothing left, no juice left. Yeah. A team member, I just saw it within my own team. Like they would just say, okay, I'll cover for you. I'm going to do that this weekend. You try to get half a day off. So, again, the strength and the value of the team was really, really something to behold and to see. It was very, very uplifting.
Yeah, wonderful. I got one more question for you, Olga, if you don't mind. And
sure.
It's less, it's kind of business related, but less, directly business related. I'm a big reader on, and I love watching YouTube videos on productivity and, quite frankly, athletes, who work extremely hard and the motivation they have and the drive they have and how they translate that, once they leave athletics and become consultants, and they translate that into the business world, and they may launch businesses or consult to businesses. What's important to you, Olga, outside of work? And what do you personally do? What are some of your rituals or habits that keep you, productive and effective and operating at a high level?
Yeah, we are complex beings, right? And it's not all about work, although, when you're at work and it's so intense, many, associate you with your personality, who you are with just your work life. But, we're all much more multidimensional. And, I'm blessed. I have a beautiful family. I've got a 2-year-old grandson who is, the light of my life. My God, how a little person like that can bring so much joy to so many people. Yeah. Beautiful, lifelong friends that, sort of envelope you with love and support, right? And everybody needs that to sort of feed their soul and nurture themselves. So, I'm lucky in that regard. Some of the rituals that I actually, started with COVID as well, because it's just such a different work experience, right? Even eating well was difficult because it was hard to find time to make a half decent dinner. And, and I'm sure lots of people felt this way, it was just sort of work and life kind of just bled one into the other. And so I started, well, gosh, you better eat a vegetable once in a while, right? So, there's veggie prep every weekend, and I just do veggie prep for the whole week. So then at night, I know I just have to warm it up and throw some protein, and I've got a half decent dinner, right? Yeah. Instead of, ordering out or doing whatever, just not eating well. So that became sort of a ritual. And this year I could just see wave 2, wave 3 upon us in the new year. And I said, it's going to be a long winter and we don't want to have the same experiences last year. So do something that will allow you to break away a little bit from work so it does not become monotonous and it does not become your whole life. And I actually started walking, and that's probably about 10 kilometers a day, and sometimes it's one big 10-kilometer walk and quite long. And sometimes I try to break it up in the day, but I do it with, very, very consistently every single day. And I've been doing that since the new year. And it forces you to stop work at a point in time, go out, enjoy what's out there, have the walk, get the exercise, clear your mind, come back, have some dinner. And then if I have to work some more, it's no problem because you felt that you've had a little bit of a break. Yeah. So that's another ritual that seems to have worked for this year. Wish I knew it last year, but I don't know if I would have had time anyways to walk.
Excellent. Listen, this has been wonderful. Thank you, Olga, so much for doing this.
Thank you. It's
really
always
appreciate
good.
it.
Yeah,
I've
no,
thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's going to add a lot of value to obviously people within my network who are going to view this video. So thank you.
great. Thank you. Good to see you again, Mandeep.
Yes,
Take
thank you.
care.